You are listening to the FORSCOM Frontline, bringing you to our soldiers on the front lines of readiness.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the FORSCOM Frontline. I'm Jeannie, and I'm your host. Today, I am joined by Major General Christopher Norrie, who is the Commanding General of the 3rd Infantry Division down in Fort Stewart, Georgia. Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me today, sir.
And thank you so much for having us. We're really proud to be here.
Absolutely. I'm excited. We actually just recently talked to General Anderson from the 18th Airborne Corps, which 3rd Infantry Division falls under.
He is great.
He is great. And he told us all about the new campaign plan that he has for the Corps and his 4 lines of effort, which is readiness, warfighting, transformation, and people, which the focus of all of our podcasts this year is warfighting and lethality. So this is absolutely perfect. But while I was talking to him, he specifically mentioned 3rd Infantry Division and your effort in forging the future of armor. So I was really excited. I told him, I said, yeah, we're talking to Major General Norrie next. So this is going to be great. So he gave you guys a shout out in his podcast. So, he only briefly talked about you guys. I really didn't give him a chance to expand because we were going to talk to you anyway. So how do you see the armored formations used in the future with rapid deployment situations? And what would they be able to do and not be able to do?
Yeah. Hey, the most important thing I'll say, being from 3rd Infantry Division all morning, is that I'm a proud dog-faced soldier. And we are really proud to be a part of 18th Airborne Corps. And that means a lot to us down here. What we uniquely offer is scale here inside the 18th Airborne Corps. As you know, we've got some incredible units in the Corps. 82nd Airborne Division is the very best in the world at what they do. The 101st Airborne they're also amazing with long-range air assault operations, the best on the planet. And then 10th Mountain, just the best in the world at fighting in the most austere, complex conditions on planet Earth and thriving. So for us, we want to build the greatest tankers and mechanized warriors in the Army, in the world, in the same way that those other formations do as well. So our goal here, these are big formations, just as context here, about 1,240 combat vehicles. One ABCT carries about just over 8,000 rounds of main gun ammunition, wow. 250,000 rounds of 25 millimeter. They've got 87 Bradleys, 87 tanks, 126 Bradleys, 18 Paladins. They carry the net explosive weight equivalent of 5 GBU-43s. The GBU-43 is the largest non-nuclear weapon that we have in the U.S. military's arsenal. It's also colloquially referred to as the mother of all bombs. And we've used it one time in Afghanistan. One of our ABCT, again, it carries the net explosive weight equivalent of 5 of those. So these are big formations here, specifically intended to point at the industrial might of another nation. And it's the equivalent of having a 6'8" offensive lineman that weighs 450 pounds and can run a 3.9 second 40-yard dash.
Wow.
And so what we have concluded here, when you look at these formations, totally aligned with General Pappas's priorities of winning trust and empowering our leaders, winning the first fight, winning the future fight, and then winning as a balanced army. As you talk to General Anderson, he's got some very clear guidance for us here in 18th Airborne Corps. You must train at night. You must train for long durations of time and then practice conducting breakout operations here. And then you'd already talked about his campaign plan that focuses on warfighting readiness, people, and then transformation there. So what we have concluded here is how we win is through a combined arms maneuver at scale and then at night. And that's got a lot of implications for us. And I'll kind of come back to your question here in just a moment. But I was hoping to frame it. We've got some incredible incredibly vibrant, forward-looking professionals down here with very clear and sober eyes observing the world. And we've asked ourselves a few questions about how we train. There's a couple of things. We are practicing, to your point, deploying quickly. So we have an immediate response package down here. It's a mechanized unit with sustainment and mission command that we've deployed out of Fort Stewart 7 times in the last 18 months.
Wow.
We flew it out to the National Training Center. We've flown it down to the Joint Readiness Training Center, and then, of course, up there to Fort Bragg to train with the 82nd Airborne Division. That helps us kind of focus on being able to deploy quickly. It also helps our installation as a force projection platform here, just sharpen all of our systems so that if we're called, we can move quickly at the same pace with which the 18th Airborne Corps would expect us to move. Looking at how we train, I'll just describe 3 problems here. One, we call it the OP4 problem, right? And so when you look at these large formations, everything we just talked about, these big formations, how we train, there's a few really interesting dynamics. One is if you have a unit that is a blue unit, they're getting evaluated, they're kind of the focus audience of training. A lot of times those units have a hard time issuing orders, crossing the line of departure on time, conducting checks and inspections, etc., and conducting rehearsals. If you take that, let's call it a company unit. If you take that same company that's blue, that has all those challenges, and then you put them on the other side and you make them the opposing force, the enemy, they just start killing stuff, right?
Okay.
And the question is, why is that, right? And one thought that we've had is that maybe we're overly focused on process and we should focus more on outcome. If you're the enemy, you're only focused on the outcome, right? Mm-hmm. I'm killing the blue force here. If you're the blue, you're getting evaluated on a process. So how do we better balance process versus outcome here? A second problem is generating more mass at the point of contact. And so when you look at these large formations here, oftentimes it comes down to an entire brigade fight will hinge on one platoon against another platoon, a very two-dimensional kind of approach. My own thought right now, just observing how we train and some of our trends at our training centers, is that an armor brigade combat team is a little bit like the human brain. We only use about 10% of it at any time. So how do we unlock the entire brigade here, all of that combat power that we talked about early on? And then the third kind of training problem that we've encountered is momentum. When you look at how we've trained, we've sent units out for short periods of time to do gunnery. They come back in. You send them back out to do platoon and company level training. They're kind of a series of going out and then coming back in here. And the challenge with that is you can kind of fake maintenance. You can drag stuff back into the motor pool. Mission command doesn't really get worked out. And then we have a momentum problem. Every time you go back out, you're kind of reinventing yourself, right? And so there's a few things that we've done to address those. And I'm going to stop in just a moment here. One is reference the outcomes. We're holding ourselves accountable for, it's not a different set of outcomes, but kind of in ways that we here in 3ID hadn't previously. So first, are we achieving our tactical purpose? And it's the equivalent of a win or a loss, inserting competition back into how we're training here. A second is, are we achieving reasonable kill ratios? Are we killing more of the enemy than they're killing of us? And then finally, are we able to maintain a reasonable rate of advance while in competition? Reference the kind of generating more mass at the point of contact. We're experimenting with our Transform in Contact Brigade with different task organizations. We're practicing out in our training area here. with kind of combining those effects, kind of extending those, kind of hyper integrating capabilities at the edge of the network. And then finally, with our training plan, we just had a brigade that stayed in the field for 6 straight weeks. And there were some really good training outcomes from that. First, you can't fake maintenance. And so our mechanics were fixing vehicles in the field, in the swamps, learning how to maintain all of that combat power in the humidity and the swamps and, while out in the field there. That unit actually, when they left the field after 6 weeks, their combat power was higher than when they went in the field. And those mechanics and our sustainment team got some really incredible repetitions. Mission command, those command posts were out for 6 straight weeks. The way that we trained previously, we'd take them out maybe for a culminating event, battalion or brigade at the end of the training cycle, and they might get 10 to 14 days of repetitions. That brigade had 45 days of repetitions out in the field. And then finally, units were much more ready to train as they hit each one of those gates there. So I call it kind of getting salty. It's kind of grit, right? You spend 10 or 14 days out there, you're tired, you're in a groove, and you're much more ready to progress through the training than you would be if you were kind of going in and out. And so reference, kind of the future of armor here. We are looking at ways to train better, to produce higher levels of lethality, really focused on training at night. We are doing new gunnery tables here and then conducting stress shoots for our platforms in the same way that our light infantry formations do as well. And then we're trying to solve some problems. How do we hold ourselves accountable for an outcome? How do we increase mass at the point of contact? What kind of feedback do we provide to our units? Reference kill ratios and rates of advance here. And then can we create more efficiencies in training? All of those, I think, are tremendous opportunities for the future of armor.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the 45-day training density, and that's something that General Anderson actually spoke about as part of his campaign plan. And you talked about CTC and JRTC, and we're actually going to talk to those leaderships later on in the year about what they do and the support and how they offer and whatnot. And right now, a lot of the senior leaders that I've talked to so far this year have mentioned, their rotations in CTC, their JRTC, their divisions in the dirt, and now you guys are a TIC unit. There's only so many of those in the Army at this point. So what are some of the lessons learned in becoming one of the TIC units and kind of going back to that 45-day training density? Like, what have you guys learned being a TIC unit, doing the 45-day trainings, and how can other units as we progress forward adopt that training methodology and become successful warfighters in today's Army?
Yeah, that's really good. We spend a lot of time really inquisitively talking about how to best evolve. And one of the interesting discussions we've had is, how do we visualize the first fight in large-scale ground combat operations going? A few things that we're kind of thinking. We think that the pace will be incredibly fast and that confusion will likely be the norm. So we've got to train that way. Fundamentals matter, the time-old adage, right? You've got to master the fundamentals so that you have the right foundation in place, so that we're able to fight and adapt and evolve here. We think that we, at best, might have information parity. We might know as much as an adversary would. In that first fight. We think our units have to be able to operate on intent. We've got to be comfortable operating with degraded communications. We think there'll be a lot of clutter on the battlefield. Masking and deception matter, and then that obscuration will be critical. We also think that an adversary might use chemical munitions and they'll be able to quickly mass. Now, relative to transform in contact, We were just in Europe about a year, we're approaching a year ago, we got back. At the time, our Ukraine counterparts described the war over there as a 30-day war. So they would introduce an innovation, and it would take the Russians about 30 days to offset it. And so they were in this constant cycle of innovation and then offset. One of the things that we think is whatever hardware we have today, a year from now, it might be obsolete. And so much more important is our headwear, how we think about these problems. How do we generate more mass at the point of contact? Are we issuing orders efficiently? Are we organized the right way? And there's a few places where I think we've got some opportunities. One is extending our intelligence all the way from the national level out to the edge of the network. A second, we've already talked about kind of increasing volume at the point of contact, counter UAS, and then protection at scale, and then communications, kind of creating a mesh network in the same way that some of our infantry brigade combat team transforming contact units are doing today. Drones, integrating UAS at an industrial scale, loitering. I'm sorry. I always stumble over that word. The O and the I don't roll the right way for me.
You said colloquial, very just perfect earlier. So I will give you this one.
loitering munitions. And then we've learned a lot from the other transforming contact units. So, General George, he talks, we've got transforming contact units, and they're driving a lot of change in those brigades. They're also driving a lot of change across the Army. Mm-hmm. And so our Raider Brigade, they'll be at Hohenfels next week, starting a rotation there at the Joint Multinational Readiness Center in Germany. We learned all kinds of stuff from 2nd Brigade, 101st Airborne, 2nd Brigade, 10th Mountain, and practiced that out at the National Training Center during their rotation. In 2nd Brigade, 101st Airborne Division, they had their brigade command post was 4 Humvees and a tent. For our Raider Brigade, their brigade command post was 4 Ant-Vs and a tent.
Okay.
There. We practiced creating clutter on the battlefield, really invested in deception. These are big formations. We're not going to hide these on the modern battlefield. And so the thought is we need to create an electromagnetic clutter, create a deception that's plausible, and then move to a different part of the network using technologies, low Earth orbit technologies to help us communicate. And kind of stay on a part of the network that, the enemy doesn't normally look. We learned all of that from the other transforming contact units and integrated a lot of drones and different things. And we're going to practice all of that in Hohenfels here starting next week.
Oh, that's amazing. And on that, like I said, because there's only a few TIC units, what can you offer because we're obviously learning lessons and we're learning how to approach warfighting and, doing these rotations like in Hohenfels and things like that. What can you offer across the Army to those units who are not TIC units to implement within their formations just to kind of better themselves and better their formations without going so in depth of as being a TIC unit? What can you offer across, the Armywide?
Yeah, first, I think the 18th Airborne Corps training model is right. Yep. The training at night, training at scale, insisting on getting the fundamentals correct. General Pappas's guidance to FORSCOM is really, really good. We've already talked about the extended training model, looking at kind of a set of reasonable outcomes when we train. Investing in smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely training objectives so that we have a good idea of an intended end state when we train. And then just focusing on kind of getting the correct kind of a good quantity of quality repetitions at echelon. A few things that we're really focused on here First is it's no surprise, but really good PT in the morning, right? Everybody can do that across the Army.
Yep.
Everything that we just talked about relies on that foundation. We are finding that our units that are conducting PT, at the greatest rates and with the highest intensity, no brainer. They have higher ACFT scores, lower levels of musculoskeletal injuries. This is fascinating. Better maintenance and fewer harmful behaviors. So that's kind of PT is kind of the wellspring, the tide that lifts all boats, right? Stress shoots. I've never been inside a tank that's been shot. I've been in a Humvee that's been blown up. If you think about what that does to the gunner, what that might do to the gunner down in the turret, right? He or she is observing the world through a periscope, basically, out to 400 to 4,500 meters there. They get rocked inside the turret, smoke, your body floods with chemicals, your heart rate elevates, your breathing becomes shallow, and you're trying to kind of regain some understanding of the world inside that metal turret as you're continuing to fight, there. We have to train that way. And right now, we're doing two things. We have the new gunnery tables out from the Armor School. They are really good. I mean, there is no free chicken on those. When you get on the range, you've got to fight that tank. And to the point where there's one engagement, it's a manual traverse engagement. You literally have to pivot steer the tank just so the gunner's got a shot at getting the turret over in time to engage the target. So the new gunnery tables are really good. There's nothing pro forma. It's a real challenge. It is really challenging. Then the stress shoots, when they're done and they qualify, we take them to a different range. Have them do really good PT so you're exhausted. You have that metallic taste in your throat. Your hands are shaking. Your heart rate's going. Put them on the tank, throw smoke, get some confusion. Squelch the radio, put them on the move, and pop 10 to 12 targets, and only a few of those are enemy targets. So you have to discriminate, and you actually have to fight. Trying to replicate some of those conditions that we might expect our soldiers will fight in when they're deployed. We're also really focusing on reducing the barriers that prevent us from conducting live fire training. So we have roll-on, roll-off ranges. Lots of units do that. We have them for small arms, and then we just started for our combat platforms as well, tanks and Bradley. So a sergeant can take his tank or Bradley out the motor pool, go draw ammo and just shoot. There's no pressure. They can practice out there on the range, work on their crew drills, maybe work on specific engagements, etc. Again, we want to build the best mechanized formations in the world, and allowing them repetitions is really, really important here. The long duration training, 45 days out, that builds a lot of grit. You get salty out there. They produced a great set of training outcomes. The brigade that we had, they moved 1,240 combat vehicles at night at about a 12 to 15 mile distance attack. And they weren't faking it. I've seen some units at night, they're kind of next to each other, they move a little bit and they stop. They were reacting to contact, they were working together, communicating. I don't know a better word, but they were flowing out there at night. No way they could have gotten there if they were investing in kind of short duration repetitions.
That's what
as
they
well.
were doing. They were vibing.
Yeah, that's it. Vibing
They were
might be a
vibing.
good way to say it, right? They were vibing. And it's a beautiful thing to see. But I think if they had not insisted, as General Anderson and General Donahue also before that, directed us to do, on more than 50% of their repetitions in the field were at night. If they hadn't insisted on that from day one and done it for 45 days straight, I don't know if they would have gotten there. But it was really impressive to see here as well. And then the final, we're increasing our force on force, kind of the competitions.
Yeah.
Soldiers love to compete.
They
right?
love
they
to
absolutely
compete.
Love it. Yeah, they do, right? And there it is, the intensity and the realism, it just goes up when your reputation's on the line. You got guidon against guidon out there. Winning or losing, it's a wonderful way to learn And then we've also really been focused on fighting NCOs. Our NCOs, General Anderson says, "Hey, we're not empowered. Our NCOs don't need to be empowered. They own these problems, right? These are so NCO ownership." And actually putting our most experienced tank commanders and Bradley commanders and infantrymen right there at the point of contact to fight with those units. That's been a powerful innovation. So there's a lot of things I think we can do across the Army without being a TIC unit, but observing TIC units, there's nothing fancy about what I just described, right? Yeah. And we have, down here, not fancy, just tough. There's ain't anything fancy about what we just talked about. Get out to the field, focus on the fundamentals, train at night, insist on a good quantity of quality repetitions, hold yourself accountable for results, really focus on kind of unlocking, practicing increasing mass at point of contact, and then just, getting out there and embracing it. Just wonderful, wonderful things. And our units, I think, and it's because of the chief, it's because of General Pappas, it's because of General Anderson, but we feel a little bit unlocked down here. Like we have permission to do these things.
Absolutely.
And that might be the most powerful outcome of all.
Well, it seems like, after talking to General Anderson and then just listening to everything that you guys are doing down there in 3rd ID, I mean, you're covering all of his lines of effort. I mean, you're hitting readiness, you're hitting warfighting, you're hitting transformation. You are investing in the human capital and making sure that they are ready to fight and transform. So you guys are definitely forging the future of the armor down there, and
oh, thank you.
Very impressed.
We're proud of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're proud of it down here, right? And there's a lot more work to do, but these teams are incredible. And, being the only mechanized unit in 18th Airborne Corps and being dog-faced soldiers, there's an identity down here. There's a lot of pride in what we do. And I'm beyond humbled every day. These are the greatest soldiers in the world. And just to have the privilege of being around them and listening to them and what they're doing, it's amazing. And I didn't talk, we have an innovation center here as well. And so if soldiers have ideas, we have a central place here on the installation. They can go in there. We have, and I'm going to mess this up, but it's the CAD, it's the mechanical engineering platform that allows them to kind of engineer a solution to it. We have machines and 3D printing in there, and they can make it. And so we've got a vibrant group of leaders down there investing in things like building drones. They created a deception device that kind of built an electromagnetic clutter that won the Dragon's Lair competition last year. I think we've won Dragon's Lair 2 years in a row. It might be 3 years in a row.
Oh, that's exciting.
Here. But there's a sense of empowerment where soldiers can go in. They built a new bore sight, a way to bore sight where you don't have to kind of, in a clunky way, stand on an MRE box, et cetera, but you put it on the end of the gun tube. Water and fuel, measurements inside the water buffalo and the fuelers. There's a real power in kind of unlocking our soldiers. If you were to put a UAS in front of me, right? I would get the box, I would unpack it, I would put it together, I would read the instructions, and within a few hours, I might try to fly it, for the first time, but in a controlled way, and in a limited space, right? These soldiers, they are inclined to innovate. You put a UAV in front of one of them, they just start flying it. Within minutes, they got it all figured out. And giving them permission to innovate and to provide ideas is really powerful. And then I guess we are trying to figure out here in Garrison how to unencumber our leaders. And so we don't use PowerPoint slides down here. And we have
that's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, we have a common operating picture called the Cop of the Rock. It's a visualization of our systems of record, kind of on a dashboard that's scalable down to the company level. And so we all look at live data using, existing systems of record. And because we're not building PowerPoint slides, we've done kind of the man-hour studies. That saves us, we think, about 90 man-hours on the division staff. But when you percolate that out across the division, we think that saves us over 2,000 man-hours a week.
Wow.
Across the division. People that were building PowerPoint slides, submitting per stats on Excel spreadsheets, et cetera. We just use the system of record, and that's one way. So our staff up here, they're not building slides for me. They're actually focusing on helping problems. I have access to the same data. I read it in the same way I read the newspaper in the morning. I don't read every headline every day, but I deep dive on the data I need to get through the day. We have a staff updates at the equivalent of a daily blog, find out what's going on, put some guidance out. And then I also am not tied to meetings, et cetera, here. And then reference using the data there, it helps our leaders a lot. When you couple that with the Chief's Unencumbering Leaders Initiative. So we looked at all the different directions and tasks here, and we came up with a list of 37 things that we don't do. We just told our company level commanders, don't do these, stop doing these things. And that also, it's not perfect, but when you put it together with everything going on across the Army, divesting excess equipment, unencumbering our leaders, trying to focus on data, better training models, ways to innovate, it's a pretty powerful set of a combination of factors there. And we're just really proud of it.
It sounds super exciting, and it sounds like you guys really have a pulse on the future of not just armor, but of the Army itself, and really enabling senior leaders and enabling your force to want to fight and be successful. And that's exciting. That's super impressive. It's a great time to be in Third ID, right?
Well, it is, and they are absolutely wonderful, but it's a great time to be in the Army. 18th Airborne Corps, all of our units or corps are incredible. We're just here. That is an amazingly vibrant, forward-looking, scanning the world every day with clear eyes, looking for opportunities to change, to deploy, to be ready. It's a wonderful team. FORSCOM, it's awesome. And then you look at the chief. Everyone's aligned, and it's an exciting time to be in the Army.
Absolutely. So, and I just have one final question, and everyone says that this is kind of a hard one. So you talk about a great time being in the Army. We're celebrating our 250th birthday this year. And what does 250 mean to you?
Let me talk about what it means to be in the world. And I'll go through this very quickly here. But human beings are capable of incredible accomplishment, right? Great works of literature or art that are transcendentally inspire, right? Technologies, our cell phones, these kinds of mediums that change the world here. Human beings are also capable of being awful to each other, right? And that's one reason why armies exist. There are people that fundamentally disagree with our way of life here in the world. And if you really thought about all of the awful things that were out in the world today, you would never leave your house in the morning. There is no one that understands those dangers more than an American soldier. Nobody does. And the fact that we have leaders and soldiers in our society that understand what every one of those dangers mean, and they push the door open every day, shoulders back, chests out, chin up, with clear eyes, and they look into the world and they say, I know that the world is a dangerous place. I also know that this dream of democracy that we have requires people that are willing to nurture it and sustain it and to defend it. So send me. I will defend everything that our Army and our people hold dear in the hopes that our children and their great-grandchildren might someday enjoy the same freedoms that we do. The fact that we have soldiers in our Army that do that every day is the most uplifting and inspiring thing that I can imagine. That our Army has done that for 250 years is nearly incomprehensible. Generations of soldiers that have sacrificed, been lonely, worked in the dirt and the dark without any hope of recognition, only for the satisfaction of having the privilege of serving our nation, makes this the greatest institution in the world. And I am so proud to be part of it. I've always been proud to be a part of it, but in our 250th year of existence, I think we're all bursting with pride.
Fantastic. Well, that's all the questions I have for today. So thank you, General Norrie, for joining me today. And
Thank you.
Talking about all the great things Third ID is doing. So until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll see you next time on the front line.
Rock of the Marm. Not fancy, just tough. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.